It is a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing a legend in dentistry, Patti DiGangi, RDHBS, who is the founder of DentalCodeology.com. Patti DiGangi is an international speaker passionate about prevention and early intervention, working with dental professionals to improve practice profitability. She is the author of the 2016 book, A Gingivitis Code Finally, the fifth book in the Dental Codeology series of bite-sized books for busy people. She authored a chapter in CDT 2017 Companion. Patti holds publishing and speaking licenses with the American Dental Association for Current Dental Terminology and SNODET Diagnostic Coding. She's a proud member of the National Speakers Association. So, Patti, they don't teach any of this in dental school. Every year, 6,000 kids get out of dental school. They don't know the code for a single thing. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely do. What's the code for cat?
Oh, my gosh. My cat, Tigger, she does not like it when I'm staring at my computer screen and not her. And she's a very selfish cat. But how come they don't teach any of this in dental school? I mean, are you aware of any dental students or any dental schools that when they come out, they know all this stuff?
Not at all. Not at all. I think they teach a smattering here and there. To be honest, one of the things that frustrates me is who's the expert in it? You know, where do you get certified in it? And the answer is nowhere. And so people learn here, there, and they read an article or in a CE class or whatever. But now we come out of dental school, dental hygiene school, knowing none of this stuff. Yet you're blasted with it the first day you get out.
Now, how many books have you written on this?
I've written five. Now, the books are interesting, though. They're not like these big books. I'm going to hold my book up. Can you see the huge size that it is?
Yes.
It's actually the same size as a cell phone. And that's done by design. Where my work really is centered is in interoperable electronic health records, where dentistry talks to medicine, that talks to pharmacy, and they all talk to one another. And it's not like all the records going into a big, central database. It's more like really how the cell phone works. I've got a Samsung on Verizon that can talk to your Apple on AT&T. Now we can share information, but I don't automatically have all your information. So what I did is I'm looking at how do we break down where dentistry needs to go in order to work in this interoperable world. And one of the things is that we need to have diagnostic coding as well as CDT coding. But we're not ready for that yet. So I started breaking down the pieces of some of the CDT coding. And the word dental codeology is a word I made up, coined. It's a study of dental codes. It's taking a deeper look at what they mean and how they can benefit us. So that's really what my work is about.
So do you still recommend all five of your books? You have a Gingivitis Code Finally. You have the you have the Dental Codeology book series. Okay, you have book one, Dental Codeology, More Than Pocket Change.
Yeah, that one I started with the basics of every question I've answered 420,000 times on periodontal coding. And alternating, recall, and all kinds of things like that. So I did that. And the case base, I used 5 cases, real cases about real people, because that's what we deal with. And so that was the first one. The second one is Jumpstart Diagnostic Coding, and that's really about determining dental medical necessity. And now that's not something we learned in dental school either. But yet when we talk about where we're going in our healthcare world, that designation of what is the medical necessity or dental medical necessity in our realm. So that's what the second book. And then I was going to do a different book, but then the Medicare thing came up. Because all dentists, what's cool is dentists are now recognized by the Center on Medicare and Medicaid as they redefine what it is to be a physician, and a dental of oral medicine and a doctor of dental surgery are considered physicians. So we're fully in that, being seen on a federal level as a primary healthcare provider, which is what we wanted for a long time. But like everything else, with rights comes responsibilities, and one of those is to register for Medicare. Now, we're not going to see a lot of this stuff hit until probably, about halfway through next year. Why? Because the requirement for dentists to register for Medicare and decide what they want to do about it is February 1st of 17. I got pushed from 15 to 16, and now it's in 17. I don't think it's going to get pushed again. So that book was about what the options are for dentists. And so then the third book, and actually the fourth book is the one that I do every year, which is an update on the codes, because I sit at the coding committee. one of the advantages I have here in Chicago is, I'm right down, I can go down to ADA and I sit at that coding committee and I listen to the discussion. So I kind of give the backstory of how these codes get made. And so every year I write an update book on that. And then this 5th one on the gingivitis code, because this is a game changer on this one. Really is.
And how much could my homies buy all 5 of those books for?
$40.
$40 for all of them?
Yep, and and one of the things about the books, because I'm talking about electronic health records, there's 3 of them that are print books, but all 5 of them are ebooks, because that's where everything is.
Why don't you should make a post on Dental Town under the dental insurance, and you could. Are you into computers and PCs and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's I do one of my courses that I give is called Tides of Change, and that's where teledentistry and telehealth and where all that's going. I'm going to get that in Utah just later this week. And so I'm definitely into this, everything with where we're at with technology and the options that we have, the clinical decision support tools. There's all different ways that we can describe it. But definitely, I'd love to get on there. Actually, I was just talking to your editor, Sam Middlestat, earlier today about doing some more articles, things like that for you too. Because it's this is a huge subject.
Yeah, it's an incredibly huge subject. And if you feel embarrassed, it feels like you're selling, just say, Howard asked me to log on and post a picture of each one of my 5 books and a link to the website to buy them. Do you buy them all on dentalcodeology.com or are they also on Amazon?
What I haven't set up for Amazon, because again, the ebook is definitely the ebook thing. I just haven't gone that way because we're such a niche market. We really have that target audience. I don't know how many.
They all spell Codeology, dental, DENTAL. They got that Codeology, CODE, code, and then ology, which means the study of. So code, CODE, ology, OLOGY. Do you like email too?
I love email.
What's your email?
Patti at dentalcodeology.com.
Patti with 2 T's, Patti. So Patti with an I, that's Irish Patti, isn't it? Or is Irish Patti with a Y?
My name is Patricia. And over the years, I think I've had every nickname. So I've had it Patti with an I, Patti with a Y, Patti with an IE. What I love is when I go to a restaurant and they say, how do you spell that? I want to tell them with a Q, because what difference does it make at a restaurant? So I is what I've been for the last however many years, but I don't know that it's any ethnic connection to it in my book.
I know. I always put the name of my table under Howard because nobody can spell Farran. I mean, nobody. And after 9/11, my name was on a watch list for years because Farran is Arabic meaning baker, and it's a very common name in Lebanon. And so you said something about did you say it was in the Affordable Health Care Act where dentists got designated as the same level as physicians, or?
No, they didn't. It actually is part of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. They're the ones that designated it. They changed the law. That was in 2013. And so they changed it, and they changed the definition of what is a physician. And it included dentistry. Finally, yay.
You got to post that on Dental Town. I had not heard that. You got to create a post on Dental Town that tells them, did you know in 2013 you changed from a dentist to a physician of the mouth?
Yeah, and and that's where it's huge, and that's where my work and what I'm talking about with dental medical necessity comes in even more. We've probably seen people, there's people out there giving courses on medical cross-coding, and there is opportunity for dentistry to get paid for under medical. Not as much as we like, but that's changing, and that's going to evolve as dentistry gets recognized, that whole oral systemic thing, the mouth's connected to the rest of the body. You probably heard about that one, right?
Yeah.
It cracks me up that we have to have courses and we have to teach anybody that the mouth's connected to the rest of the body. But that body of evidence, it keeps expanding. And as we learn to document the dental medical necessity for care, including much more the medical side than we ever did in our dental records, we have an opportunity to be and work in that playground. And, when it comes down to it, we know dental benefits have always stated that, it was 1,000, 1,500, the same as it was 40 years ago, which doesn't cover much. But in the medical realm, there certainly is opportunity for a lot better possible payment. And especially if you're already doing stuff like you're doing sleep medicine, you're doing anything with advanced TMJ, you're doing anything with airway, myofunctional. It's all kinds of arenas that that offices are already expanding into, and they may have some idea that they could do this, but they don't really know how. So that's, again, part of the work that I do.
So, Patti, how was the Affordable Health Care Act, known as Obamacare? We hear a lot about that. It made medical for children or under 21 to include dental. What kind of, is that a game changer? What does that look like now, a couple years later?
It has absolutely changed the game. The Health Policy Institute of the American Dental Association, what's really interesting is it had that division at ADA for a long time, but they hired this guy, his name is Marco Vukovic or something like that. Anyway, his background is he comes from the Canadian healthcare system. He's Canadian. Then he worked with the World Bank. Then he worked on the Affordable Care Act, and now he works for ADA. Interesting background. And he's a health economist, and he works with a lot of looking at what healthcare trends are. And what he's already been able to show is that the real upswing that we've had since the Affordable Care Act in the number of children that are being seen in dental offices. What's really a challenge, though, is, and there's a friend of mine that speaks on this, that with that, because of the Affordable Care Act, it's required that every healthcare policy include coverage for oral health for children. It's children under 12. Okay.
Oh, under 12.
Yeah. And so but they're getting now, some office managers and some offices are getting, hey, I got a medical policy that'll cover my kids' oral health care here at your dental office. Can you fill this out for me? We have no clue. We have no clue how to do that. So it's changing. It's going to continue to change. What we're also seeing change is the other part of the Affordable Care Act. The bigger thing on the Affordable Care Act is to take a system that has been, basically we're paid on how sick people are to how healthy we can help people be. Now, where that got played out is in California. California, at the end of last year, the end of 2015, it was worked out with the California Dentical, which is their Medicaid for dentistry in California, that they got a $750 million federal grant that is for the practitioners to be able to show how healthy they're helping children be. Part of the money goes toward helping facilities upgrade, and the other part is, say they get usually paid, it's 100% of a certain fee. If they can show that the kid gets healthier and has come in consistently, they'll get 125%. They'll get 150%. They'll get 175% of UNC. This is big stuff. So practitioners actually being compensated for people becoming healthier, because that's really the longer term purpose of the Affordable Care Act.
And Patti, where do you think U.S. healthcare is going? You talked about Marco coming from Canada. They have a single payer system. If you had to bet your house and car and donkey 25 years from now, where do you think the U.S. healthcare system will be at? Where do you think it's going? Because we're at an election where one party, Trump, wants to cancel and roll back Obamacare. Hillary's already said she's for a single-payer system, correct? So where do you think it's going?
Well, I think in the long term, yeah, it's going to go to a single payer, because the world has changed, and we're still fighting that change. And it's a little bit, we have our independent, we're U.S. and we can do it the best, and we can do it our own. But we live in a world where we can learn from other countries, first of all. And I think, though, unfortunately, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And the idea, we're already seeing, again, the changes in just the number in practices. And in a couple of weeks, I'm doing a program for Aspen Dental. And I'm going to do a program from their headquarters out to their how many hundred offices that they have now. And that's what we're seeing, is that upswing in the group practice. And it's really dentistry is changing more rapidly than a lot of times practitioners really realize. And then that bigger part of being part of the medical world. And so dentistry is a specialty of medicine. Really is. You
should put that presentation online on Dental Town.
Love to.
We got 250,000 dentists on the website, but we came out with the app. It's got 50,000 dentists and hygienists have downloaded the app. We put 360 courses on there. They've been viewed over 650,000 times.
Terrific, yeah.
So would you do that?
I'd love to. I would love to. So getting the message out. about getting the message out. It's really funny. That's really where I am in my life. It's about really helping. I've been at this a long time, and I think it's probably similar to you. It's about spreading the word. It's about making change by getting the information out there in a easy, digestible way. And that really, and part of the reason that's why I want to talk about the gingivitis book, the newest one. It's really interesting how I see that one as a real game changer. For years, we've wanted something between scaling, rib planing, and a prophy. And we know that there's certainly cases that, they haven't lost any bone yet, but they're more than just what a preventive prophy is. So we wanted to have a code for a long time. And every year at the coding committee, it gets submitted. And every year it gets voted down. And 2 years ago, it went through the usual thing. It went in and they voted it down and they're moving on to the next discussion. And finally somebody said, you know what, this keeps coming up. Maybe we should look at it. So they did. And they brought up this task, they put together a task force, and hygienists actually got to be part of it. American Hygienists Association actually got to be involved. We usually aren't because we're not members of that committee. And so they came up with this code, and it's pretty complicated. But what I love about it is I think it's an opportunity to really make the oral systemic connection real, because it's recognizing disease in that earlier stage before we have profound damage. Most of the arena we work in, we're looking for moderate to severe damage and trying to ameliorate the damage after the horse has left the barn. I like using ameliorate and a horse in the same sentence. Anyway, but this is about earlier detection and early treatment. And one of the things they did with it that really makes it different is it's not in the preventive section. It's in the perio section because it is a therapeutic code. It's not just a preventive code. So it takes really the two codes that are the most submitted codes under dental are the evaluation codes and the prophy codes. So it's going to take, I don't know, what's the percentage of patients? Well, how many years have you been a clinician? I've been a clinician. How many truly healthy people have you ever seen as a hygienist? And I've asked that with hygienists, and I get numbers like 10, 12. I go, percent? They go, no, in my whole career. Okay? Most people have some level of disease that we're treating. Yet we've called it, until there was bone loss, or analogy I make is until somebody could have high blood pressure, but until they have a heart attack, we don't recognize it. That's really what our system's been. We're going to finally have that piece in the middle for early recognition and treating. You got high blood pressure, you need therapy, not just prevention. Okay, you need prevention too. So that's where this piece fits. But it's going to be a crazy piece because one of the things, even in the title, let me ask you a question, Howard. When you saw patients, when did you check the hygiene patient? Well, what point of the appointment?
At the end of the appointment.
Why?
On a recall.
Why?
Because she or he, the hygienist, in there for an hour, did the cleaning, took the x-rays, did everything, and would tell me their findings of the hour.
Okay. Thing is that what's interesting about that, and I've talked to people, many people, we do that out of clinical tradition, not out of any real reason. There's no science or anything behind it. And with this code, it actually, part of the name of the code is it says after oral evaluation. That means this treatment cannot be performed by the hygienist until the doctor has come in, made the diagnosis, and ordered treatment. Now that's a very different order. Yet that is actually the order you look at it from just a coding perspective. That's actually what the order should have been a long time ago. Because, and you notice I said evaluations, I didn't say exam, because we didn't have any exam codes at all. There are evaluation codes. What's the difference? Well, it's written in the general section in the coding book. This is the study part of the codes for me. It says some data may be gathered of the examination may be gathered by other people, but the diagnosis and treatment planning is the responsibility of the dentist. Well, if the dentist comes in at the end and the hygienist has taken any x-rays, done a fluoride, done a scaling, whatever, we made a diagnosis that person was healthy enough and that was the proper care for that day. So these games that hygienists don't diagnose and we wait till the end for the doctor to diagnose, it's a joke. It always was. So what's interesting, though, is how that language was written in that code. So it's not like, okay, so it's a recall patient. They come in, they have signs of gingival disease, which that's a whole other thing of how we're going to document that. The hygienist does whatever therapy it is. The doctor comes in at the end. We've already done some insurance fraud if we use that code.
And when you see a new patient, you do the exam before you decide what type of clean they're going to get.
Yeah.
And I was really upset taking my son to Chandler Regional Medical Center where he had a bump and he didn't know what it was. And they went in there, and the triage person took an X-ray of it without talking to a doctor. And then the doctor got in there. The first thing he said out of his mouth was, "Well, I don't need an X-ray of this. This is just a little fat lipoma deal, whatever." And I'm just like, "Well, then why did you radiate my son's lower body?" Well, that wasn't even legal. And I asked him that, and he just rolled his eyes. I mean, it's sad, but yeah, the doctor's supposed to make the exam before they do that. Another thing that's really hot on the well, first of all, back to this Obamacare, Affordable Health Care Act.
Yeah.
Is the pediatric dentists are the ones that was focused on the kids under 12, and there's got to be what is there, almost 5,000 pediatric dentists, and they graduate 300 new ones a year. Is this really turning? Are they really focused on this big time, or are they asleep and slowly waking up to it, or because you would think that would have impacted them the most?
You would think, but it's also interesting, though. Go back to another thing with the Medicare thing. This one's really got me a little crazy when I first realized it. Is I did a course on the Medicare at a pediatric dental office. Why? Because an awful lot of the kids, it's part of it, we don't have the difference between the Medicare and Medicaid as clearly. There's an awful lot of kids with disabilities that are seen by pediatric dentists that they're under Medicare. Not Medicaid, Medicare. So the pediatric dentist said that, that particular office I was talking to, that I was at, he said at least 50% of his patients are under Medicare. Now that's not an age-based thing. We always think it was just for older people over 65, but it's not. It's for people with disabilities, people that, like in the Medicare book, I have a 20-year-old that she had kidney failure. She actually qualifies for Medicare. It's kind of goofy that way. But what their percentage is, and it's interesting. I don't know what the numbers are for the pediatric dentist, because I wonder how many people too are sending the kids to the pediatric dentist, because we know in the perio there's a lot less referral in the first part of this century. We have less referral now than we did in the last part of last century. Why? Economics. People are keeping the stuff in-house, so they're not sending them to the pediatric dentist. So these same things that certainly would be affected in the pediatric dental office, they're in any dental office, because how many kids do we have in our dental practices? There's usually still a good percentage of them. So I don't know the answers.
Patti, there's a lot of dental students that listen to this podcast, and about 30% is in 150 other countries. Explain the difference between Medicare and Medicaid to dental students in America.
Okay. Medicaid is for our population of people that don't have enough economics to be able to afford health care. Okay, so that's what the Medicaid production system is. It also, there are some people, then there's the Medicare, which is usually for people over 65, that everyone over 65, no matter of your economic, your income, everybody. Give you an example. My husband's turning 65 because I married a really old guy. Anyway, but he'll be 65 in November. Now, he's still working. He's a teacher. He still has health care. Our requirements are that you still have to register for Medicare, because everybody in this country over 65 is part of the Medicare system. But in addition, there are other people that are covered under Medicare. And again, as I mentioned, people with disabilities can get a Medicare exemption, and then they are covered under Medicare. Sometimes it's full, sometimes it's partial. And sometimes people with, and it's really interesting because it's written that people with kidney failure, it's a specific way it's written. Now, there's also people that get both Medicare and Medicaid. That means they are in the low economic scale as well as being over 65, and they can have dual coverage. So that's really basically how it's covered. But it's a federal program, but Medicaid is usually, the level of payment is usually determined by each state individually.
Let's talk about the practice management software. About a quarter of the dentists are on Henry Schein's Dentrix, a quarter on probably Patterson's EagleSoft. There's other major players like Open Dental. When you're looking at dental Codeology, does any system better or worse, or are they all the same? You can enter any code on any system, or do you like some systems better than others?
Great question. First of all, the codes are part of HIPAA. determined the CDT as they called it the standard code set for dentistry. That happened in 2001 or something like that. So all of the software all have that same code set. It's the only code set. Now, in addition, because there have been holes in codes and there's offices that are doing things that they want to see, codes are more than just about insurance payment. They're about measurability. They're about metrics. And again, with where we're going with our healthcare system, that's going to come more and more. What are the metrics? How are we measuring things? So there's offices that have made up codes, and they have exploding codes. Now, Dentrix and EagleSoft and CareStream, those majors, they all have that. So like somebody comes in for a hygiene appointment, they can put in one code that explodes out. That means they did this, 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 and this. So there's definitely some of the major players have been at this for a long time. Do I think one's better than another? You know what my bigger concern is they don't talk to each other yet. Because in an interoperable world, if we're going to have medicine talk to pharmacy, we got to get Dentrix to talk to EagleSoft first. And that's one of the challenges that we have even with our softwares. But from a coding perspective, no, the codes are the codes. And they should be, at practice, have to always make sure that they're using and that their software has the most updated codes. Now, there's offices that don't like to do the updates that, are offered. I was down at EagleSoft's headquarters here in downstate Illinois, and I think they're on EagleSoft 17, and they support back to EagleSoft 13 or 12 because there's offices that haven't upgraded. Well, if they haven't upgraded, does that mean they've upgraded their codes? I don't know. I'm sure I know the companies all urge it because codes get updated every year now, new codes. So by the end of December 31st of this year, the CDT for 2016 expires. So that in their system, they have to make sure they have the new codes too.
So when you were saying at the very beginning that, that this gingivitis code would get voted out, walk us through that table. Are those dentists, hygienists, periodontists? Are they insurance companies? What's that table look like?
You know what? That's been an evolving thing that's really interesting. Actually, the CDT as it stands now, there's a lot of people like, oh, it's been this way forever. Not even close. It was not until 1985, so 36 years ago, that ADA said, because it used to be that, all the different insurance companies had their own codes, they had their own forms, we didn't even use 1 through 32 universally. Now, people that are in school now or younger people are going, really? Really? I know I worked with dentists that used quadrant or used half-mouth tooth numbering systems. So in 1985, ADA set up the first committee for creating codes, and it took them until 1991. The first book came out in 1991, CDT-1. It's supposed to be updated every 4 to 5 years. And it was updated, they had CDT-2 was in 1995. But then between 95 and 2000, the world started spinning faster. 96, we got HIPAA. And HIPAA is all about the insurance, record keeping thing and privacy, and it's all about electronic health records. So that changed some things with the coding world. And then something else happened. The original committee was like the Perio Association and the Ortho Association and ADA. That was the committee. The insurance companies, midway, again, it was probably in 96, 97, they said, hey, we should have a say here. And ADA says, we own the codes. No, they don't. Went back and forth. Finally went to litigation. Ultimately, both sides will say they won, and ultimately, I don't know that either side won, but there was the formation of the Code Maintenance Committee, which had a term that went from 2001 until 2011. So that was an equal balance between the payers and the providers. Now, that committee decided they're going to upgrade the book every 2 years. They decided that they're going to, then they started timestamp the book. But that committee was done in December of 2011, and the new committee that came in starting in January of 2012 kind of went back to its own format of the insurance carriers are there, but the 21 players that are on the committee are, again, from the different associations, except hygiene. We don't have a say yet. That's me there. Anyway, I go, but I'm the only hygienist by myself. But anyway, but that committee, they decided we have to update codes every year. And the reason is the expanding materials and technologies and the need for more codes. And that does give us opportunity that we've seen more codes coming in the last couple of years more quickly than we ever did before. Matter of fact, there's still anybody even listening could go on to the ADA code site right now, submit that they want to see this code. And before November 1st, and the code committee will evaluate it to see if they think it has any value or not. So everybody gets a say in it, but including the insurance carriers. They're still there because they do have a say in it, too.
So you said in 1985 is when we actually got numbers for the tooth, and America and the American Dental Association went with the The universal.
91, yeah.
It was what?
91 is when the first book came out. They started the committee in 85. It took till 91 till the first book came out.
And they went with the universal numbering system 1 through 32. And now with the internet and Facebook and Dental Town having dentists from every country on earth, everyone else went with the FDI, the International Standards Organization. Do you think it's kind of the United States is kind of doesn't use the metric, uses a different system? Do you think someday we'll be single payer and switch from the universal number system to the ISO that all the other countries use, and along with metric? I mean, do you think that's it's a given it'll go that way, or what do you think?
Yes. How quickly, I don't know, but yeah, I do. I mean, we've seen things like even with metric. My husband teaches automotive technology, right? And we've seen car crashes, and we've even heard about our shuttle crashes. Why? Because we don't use the metric. And it's like and this is what we hate to admit here in the U.S., but we're actually behind the rest of the world in many ways.
No, we're number one in everything. We're number one in everything.
Except for the stuff we're not. I think we're like 17 in how healthy babies are born. Really? Yeah, that's where we've gotten ourselves to. I mean, even with this electronic health records, there are parts of the world that are so far ahead. Actually, in Israel, they've been completely electronic in their health records since, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years. I mean, we're behind. Even with the ICD, now that's the medical coding number system. It was a big thing. We finally, a year ago, went to ICD-10. The rest of the world went to ICD-10 10 years ago.
I know, and what's sad is Grandma passes out at the grocery store, and the paramedics get there. They don't know anything about her. And any other country, they'd have all her records, all of her pharmacy, all of her prescriptions. And you take a passed out grandpa into an emergency room, and they're lucky to even know the guy's name. So it's just how can you have quality health care if when an ambulance picks you up, they don't even have your records?
My sister, and I got allergies, but my sister's like nuts. I even did an article on her because she anaphylaxed in a restaurant with me, right? And she's just gotten worse since then. Matter of fact, she's one of the characters in one of my books because she's so complicated. And now I get to the point where her allergy profile has gotten so bad that I worry about her going to the emergency room as much as I worry about her having an emergency. Because are they going to kill her at the emergency room if the thing she took in the first, whatever she was exposed to in the first place, didn't kill her? Because here's what's really interesting. It goes back to electronic health records. They've gotten better, but at one point, they only had 10 fields for allergies. So if you had an 11th allergy, medication allergy, it would push one off. Really? Well, you should see her list. It's crazy. She's got a 2-page just her medications and her allergies, let alone what her allergy profile and her migraine profile. And by the way, it's my younger sister. It's like, yeah. So this is part of, I'll be honest with you, this is part of what my passion for all this is, that I want to have a personal health record. Now, what's a personal health record? Personal health record is the person should be in control of my health record is me. But, this whole thing, HIPAA, you can get your records. You ever try? And then when you look at it, I see stuff that on their record that's just not right. It's not true. It's the wrong person. It's crazy. But it's so, for people that, don't like the idea of the big brother and all the records being in one place, it's about me. I should have my health records. But trying to get your own health, I can get a copy of a test, but try to get the original test to have somebody else look at it. That's really a challenge. And that's what a lot of this is about. And if you think about it in a dental office, we chart everything whatever way we want. The most important data is not the procedure, the codes that we have, it's what we put in the notes, okay? Well, what we're also moving toward in this electronic health record world is called structured data, that all those notes also become numbers. Because this whole thing of writing, you can't search it, you can't measure it. And that's where a lot of this is going, so that we can have a safer healthcare system. Because that's the Affordable Care Act. Again, one that people get healthier and it's safer.
Why do you think the Affordable Health Care Act is so controversial? Why do you think the Congress, how many times did they have a vote to repeal it? I mean, it was like 30 times. It's even a big contest in this election. Trump saying he'll repeal it, Hillary saying go for it. Why do you think it is so controversial in America, where it just has zero controversy in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, Germany, all those other countries?
That's a complicated question to which I have lots of different thoughts. Part of it is, again, the melting pot that the U.S. is. So we bring in all these different sensibilities, our sense of independence, we love that, we're independent thinkers and we all can do, we don't have that same, when you go to England, most of the people there are English, okay? And that brings with it a very different sensibility about how we do things together and how we think differently. The other part is that we, with our, the way our system is set up economically, there's a lot of people that have made a lot of money off the system as it's been. And of course, they don't want it to change. Let me see, I made a lot of money before and I'm going to make less money if we change the system. Well, why would I want the system changed? So what happened with the Affordable Care Act, this is not new. It's not, what's interesting and the whole political thing, with electronic health records and some of the healthcare savings, that in every one of George Bush's State of the Union messages, he talked about it. Now, most people don't because who listens to it? Okay. But it really isn't a Republican or a Democrat, or it just depends on the politics of the moment. That, this is right now, the Republicans are against it and the Democrats are for it. But are the Democrats for it because the Republicans are against it or vice versa? That gets into all of that baloney that we seem to be going through here as a country. And the polarization on everything, it just fight it to fight it. So
what I always wondered in George Bush speech is he was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. He goes to Yale University and Harvard, and then he gets a Texas accent.
You know what, though? I got a nephew that moved down to Texas about 7 years ago. Same thing happened here. You lived 40 years in Illinois, and now you're a Texan with the big buckle. But just like I said, the accent too going. How's that happen? I don't know, but it does.
His homies in Connecticut and Yale and Harvard are probably thinking, what the hell happened to that guy? But you're absolutely right. When you go to Japan, they're all Japanese. You go to Korea, they're all Korean. You go to Vietnam, they're all Vietnamese. Even Poland is 98.5% Polish and Catholic. And so these social single-payer system, you need a bigger sense of community. And then the other issue is that all the countries we mentioned are so much smaller. I mean, we're in the same measurement as, we're the big four countries: Indonesia, 280 million, America, 330 million, India, China. When you compare us with the countries that have 1/3 billion people or more, we're actually doing really, really well. But when you compare us to countries the size of the state of California with a completely homogenous population with more sense of community, I think you're right. That is a huge part of the challenge. So I want to ask your coaching advice to these dentists. I got to admit to you, a lot of these dentists thinking, well, I'm a dentist. I'm a hygienist. I don't need to know codes. That's front desk work. Does a dentist, and podcasters are usually under 30, does a dentist really need to learn the codes, or is this something the front desk does?
Yes and no. No and yes, perhaps. No. You know what? We have.
You prefer yes and no or no and yes? Which one are you going to go with? You're confusing me. Yes, is it
I'm
yes?
go with all of that because it's there needs to be some change. The front desk, first of all, I honor them by calling them the business professionals rather than a piece of furniture. Just saying.
I love that. That is awesome. So what do you call the people?
Business professionals.
Business professionals.
Yeah, office managers, business professionals. I try to treat them because if nothing else, I got to break down some of the barriers that we have because we really do need to work together. When it comes to what we have really put on them to do with this coding thing, first of all, a lot of them, where did they get their training on a coding? Where does anybody get their training? One of the things, like in my introduction, it said I carry a license from ADA to do seminars and to write on it. Most people don't even know that you're supposed to have a license, but you are. Now, does that mean I went through a certification program? I wish, but it isn't. And that's the real challenge. So everything's like a catch, they learned it, I just saw it this way, or they called a carrier one time and got this answer. Well, that doesn't mean it's being done, it's not being done as accurately could be or even as optimally as it could be. And to leave it all to the business professionals, because we check off a few things in the back, It's just, dentists and hygienists need to get involved, because when it comes to the determining of medical necessity, my definition of dental medical necessity is diagnosis plus risk assessment. Now, we can't leave the diagnosis and the risk assessment to the business professionals. That's us. Now, the reason I say risk assessment, too, because that goes into the whole where we're going with CAMBR, care is managed by risk assessment, but it's really across all of healthcare. I'll just bring it to a medical side to give you an example. I know I carry the risk for colon cancer because my father and 5 of his siblings have all had colon cancer. So I have my baseline colonoscopies as recommended. But my father had genetic testing done, and now we know we carry the gene for colon cancer. I have a 26-year-old son. Should he wait till he's 40? Well, no, that's different, isn't it? Because of risk. So what we should be treating in our practices is not just the current presence of disease, but also the risk for disease. So someone's medical necessity or dental medical necessity is their current diagnosis plus their risk. Because, again, that example that I use, and really that's the basis, again, for CAMBR, but I see that for perio, I see that for oral cancer. And that's that establishment to that again, that's the clinician's job. The business professionals can't do that. So we need to do that and document it, because there's a little box on an insurance form most people don't ever show you. It's called remarks. Right now, it's the only place that we can put that dental medical necessity, but that's where it goes. Now, that's not going to be me as a hygienist or you as a dentist that's going to write it in there. But the information, by the way, here's the other thing about that information. It's a really little box. It's for writing a narrative. Here's the way I teach it. Write them like Twitter. Shouldn't be more than 140 characters that you can write a dental medical necessity. And it can be done. It takes practice. Now, usually write, documentation that's like this. It's either nothing or like this. Somewhere between there, it's actually Twitter style. Goes in that box. That's learning the steps for that. That other thing you introduced me, that snowdent coding. I also have a license from ADA for that. What's snowdent? It's a systematized nomenclature for dentistry. Diagnostic coding padding that's going to go with CDT. That or ICD-10, who knows which actually is going to finally be decided. But one way or the other, it's about learning the skills now to be ready for that world. And help, it's not just to be ready for that world, it's how to help mold that world. Right now, we got about 2 or 3 people that are deciding all this stuff for all the rest of us. I'm one of those. I'd like to get involved in this, having a say in the system. So anyway, so that's where, so dentists and hygienists need to get involved, as well as the business professionals, because we've got to give them the stuff that they need to, because right above that little line for the 35 remarks, there's a little box already on the insurance form for the medical diagnostic coding. It's there already. The system has been being worked on for a long time. And
is snowdent still ongoing?
It's still the system that ADA wants. Again, I carry a license, but since they only charge me $1 a year, I don't think they value it that much. I don't know where. I don't think I ever said that online before, but that's the reality of it. But that, and it's a really complicated. It's a whole different way of thinking. That's really what I see too with that gingivitis code. It's not really a change in the numbers. It's a change in our thinking. It's a change in our tradition. It's a change in our why do we do the exam at the end? It's questioning all that. It's time for us to kind of clean our closet out. I mean, the whole evidence-based decision-making and all the baloney that's gone on with that, is to really look at what we're doing, and do we even have scientific evidence behind it? This whole, I cannot get through anytime I get to be online and not talk about the flossing flap. That whole big stink of a couple, over the last month or so about flossing. Do you know that guy reporter was right? He went to the ADA evidence-based portal, and the research, the meta-analysis of multiple studies supported exactly what he said about flossing. But we went, oh, that's our foundation. That's everything we believe. Yeah, but is it scientific? And actually, it's not.
Well, so many things that we believe are not proven. I mean, there's just so many things. I mean, even forget about religion. Let's go to politics. Like, people die because they think a totalitarian hierarchical type of managing people is evil and an egalitarian democracy is good. Yet from an economic standpoint, in the last 30 years, China and Singapore have done better than anyone else, and they don't have democracy and freedom and all this crazy stuff. You could almost make an argument that a democracy is saying, well, let's get rid of the totalitarian dictator teacher like your husband, and we'll have the students vote. Do you want to Do you want to study calculus or go to recess? And then when they go to lunch, we'll say, well, let's vote. Do you want vegetables or pizza and french fries and ice cream? And so much of what we believe in is mythology. The stories we tell ourselves is everything. You called, I'm going to go completely off topic, but you said you had 5 sisters and you're married. Do you have any children?
I have 3 children. I have 3 grown children. I have a daughter who just got remarried, decided to fly to Las Vegas in August. Anyway, and then I have a son, and I have 2 grandchildren. Finally, I got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old grandson. Well, he should be 1 next week. And then I have my youngest, who is that 26-year-old that I already. And he is. You know what's interesting is they are of 2. I've got 2 Gen Xers and I got a millennial. And it's really different. And well, the youngest one, he has a degree in interactive media and web design. I think I was like at his graduation before I actually got those words of what he was doing.
Well, let me ask you an off-topic question. You opened up a can of worms. You said that the people who work at up front should not be named after a piece of furniture, the front desk. You used to call them business professionals, but actually, I have so many dentists asking me this question in private, and they won't ask it in public. But you and I are both. I'm a grandpa too, and you're a grandma, and you have children that are millennials, Generation X, or whatever. Speaking of this business professional, a lot of dentists our age, they wonder if they cannot hire a woman up front who's a business professional if she has visible tattoos on her arm or her neck or whatever. Are they just being old fuddy-duddy? Do millennials see tattoos differently? Would you go to a doctor and have a colonoscopy if his nurse had a saying written on her shoulder blade and Hawaii on her arm, or what my neighbor has the Hawaiian Peninsula tattooed down her shoulder, and I thought, I've lectured in Hawaii like 5 times. I was never motivated enough to tattoo the islands of Hawaii down my arm. But what's your thoughts on that controversial issue?
You know what? I don't even think it's a controversy. It is a generational thing. All 3 of my children have tattoos. My daughter, I think, has the most. And she is a certified massage therapist and she does therapeutic massage. And so she's very much in a healthcare realm herself, but it just seemed differently. And now for me, and this is just purely, I don't mind tattoos, but I hate the rings in your lip and in your nose but that's a generational thing. I don't think it has really identified someone's quality or their ability to do a job, and some of those things we got to let go. I just don't think it's that important.
I knew you thought that. That's why I took out my lip piercing before the podcast. Hey, I got to tell you a funny story about my 4 boys. I told them that, I don't know why I even said it, but I told them that, I've never seen a tattoo on a president of the United States. I've never seen a tattoo on a CEO, Fortune 500 company. And as long as I'm paying for your college, there'll be no tattoos, no drugs, blah, blah, blah. The hour after my oldest son finished college, I mean, that first thing he did is drove to the tattoo shop. And he loves tattoos, and he grew out these dreadlocks, and he would just say, Dad, you're jealous. You're old, fat, bald. I've got dreadlocks, hair, tattoos. He goes, you should. So it is really a generational thing, isn't it?
It really is. And I think, it's like we got to get over it. As a matter of fact, one of the things I talk about with the electronic health records, where we've got to start looking at our practices, and that our best opportunity to really move into this world is our millennials. I mean, they get it. When my grandchildren, every time my granddaughter comes over, she teaches me something on my cell phone. Really? Because we reached the 100th monkey with that generation. And the same thing with millennials. They get it. They get it in ways we don't get it. And that's where even some of this controversy, when we go back to the, fighting the Affordable Care Act, and how much is that the old fuddy-duddies that we can't, why is it that we can't have electronic health records? I fly all the time.
And the same people that have all these privacy concerns are posting their intimate lives on Facebook every hour.
Exactly.
So they don't care if Mark Zuckerberg has all their information. It's just the healthcare system.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our banking system, my money is not, it shouldn't be private. Well, it's all electronic. Then why can't my healthcare be electronic? It's crazy. Actually, it's nonsensical. That we have all. And again, it's the same thing. I think we've had a theme here of the things that we think we believe, but really aren't based on anything. And so yeah. But again, looking at the millennials, that's the future. That's the future. After that, I wish I could say we left them something healthier than we have.
The older you get, the more you realize that common sense is completely uncommon.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I don't even know how they call it common sense. Because common sense is the Earth is infested with about 7 billion walking monkeys called Homo sapien, and about 99% of them are batshit crazy. In fact, I've come to learn that after 54 years that I may be the only normal person that lives on Earth.
Excuse me, I think that if the whole world is crazy except you and I, and I'm not too sure about you, I think that's really the way it goes, Howard.
Well, hey, so you talked to the editor, Sam, today at Dentaltown. You're going to write us another article?
I did. I have a friend of mine that I do some speaking with. She was doing an article for you on the silver diamine fluoride, and she thought because there was a new code for it.
Was that Jeanette?
Judy Bendit. And so I jumped in on that, and so a question came up, and so I had Sam. I'm like, hey Sam, I'll write you. I want to write you some articles, and they asked me if it could be a CE. So yeah, it's just expanding just as of today. Love it.
And the online CE would be amazing because millennials. Speaking of millennials, they instead of going to a dental convention, they just want to lay there with their iPhone. Because you know what millennials do? Well, millennials tell you, if you look at the big screen TV on your wall, because that's what my generation wants, the big screen TV. But they say hold the iPhone up in front of the TV and pull it back until you no longer see the TV. And they just lay on the couch and lean this thing up against a pillow, and it's the same thing. But I'll tell you about that silver diamond for you. That's another crazy monkey argument where you put this silver diamond on there and it kills the bugs. Well, 80% of all the grandpa pediatric dentists, having the bugs dead, that ain't good enough. They have to be removed and put in the trash can and filled in with something else. And when you're looking at a microbiological infection, you're like, well, if they're all dead, who cares where they are? Why can't you just kill them there and let them lie? And the emotional monkey's like, no, it has to be physically removed, put in a trash can, and dumped in the dumpster. We just can't have dead stuff in a tooth.
And didn't they get rid of that like after the Civil War on the medical side that we have to cut your leg off if you had a damage to it? We still cut limbs off. That's what dentistry is. Cut it off and cut it out. And it was really interesting. I was at a periodontist yesterday with my daughter because my daughter ended up losing 50% of her alveolar crust in a very short period of time. And she's just one of those, she's got the sensibilities of a hygienist, right? And she's got this unbelievable diet, and she's one that we can't figure. But it was really funny listening to him about that whole thing of what we were taught versus what we understand now. And we're still between those two things of, even though I know this makes sense, I still think, and that's the challenge we have.
Yeah, and humans will always be biased to what they know without considering the possibilities of what they don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And
when I learned digital radiography back in 92, worked in practice, we were paperless in 92. And that's why it cracks me up when people, we're just getting past the paperless. Anyway, when I learned digital, I wasn't there the day of the training, too typical, right? And I go, don't worry about it, we'll show you. Yeah, hand-me-down training. And I'm like, that's pretty, I was the queen, the periodontist and the endodontist, and everybody in the building always went, Patti, to take the x-rays. I was the best, right? So I went to take these x-rays, and back then the rooms weren't set up for them at all. So we had to turn the chair completely. I had to take it was a cord to the computer, so I'd place the ring holder, I'd place it in there, but then I had to duck under the x-ray head. I had to step on a button, click over here on the computer, go outside. It was this whole... And then within, 20 seconds, I had a really lousy x-ray that the patient could even say, that's lousy. Now, how much did I want to argue for the old way? Because I was good at the old way. I was the queen at the old way. And so, yeah, that's always the challenge. Especially when you've been at the top of your game, the old way, to look at something a different way is really hard. I get. But that's why I like being the one that pushes change. Because I'm an old dog that's a futurist.
Well, I think you're amazing. One last final question. There is... something we see growing insurance consulting agencies that actually are going back and trying to negotiate higher fees for the PPOs. Do you see that? Do you think that's something that only big corporate dental offices can go? Do you think individuals can do that, or are you not really in that space?
I'm not necessarily in that space, but economy of scale always has a bigger play in any kind of a negotiation process. But it doesn't mean somebody shouldn't try it. Why not? I don't find, the carriers are, they work from numbers and actuarials. They're not necessarily big thinkers. I went to the the National Association of Dental Plan, something or other. I actually heard an actuarial speak. I never have to have that actual experience again. Thank you. Anyway, they look at it from just such a different way. And we just need to understand their game, and why not? Try and negotiate. Always get a better deal. What's wrong with that? And can any individual do it? Sure. Sure.
It always reminds me of all those years of college when you go out with your best buddies and they'd be at a bar and they'd want to dance and they'd just stare at the girls all night. And I'd always say, why don't you ask her? And they'd sit there the whole night because they just lived in fear that little girl would say no. And it's like, who cares? I mean, whenever I would go to a table, if I asked a girl to dance, said no, I asked the girl sitting right next to her. And if she said no, the third one usually was a taker. And it's like, so what do you have to lose asking your patients to upgrade to fixing one tooth to the quadrant to the whole mouth? What do you have to lose to asking your insurance companies they pay you more? What do you have to lose to ask some girl to dance with you on a bar floor?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So based on this podcast, I'm going to hang up now and I'm going to go get that lip piercing I've always wanted. You talked me into it.
I'm going to get a tattoo possibly on the end of my nose.
Should I get my eyebrow or the lip? Which one do you?
No, I really hate the lips, so get the lip.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I've been a dentist 29 years. I've seen oral damage from tongue piercings and lip piercing because something will happen that normally would have busted a lip, but when you got a ring in there, it's going to chip the tooth, bust the tooth. Okay, well, Patti, I look forward to your articles. I'd love to have that course, and I want you to start a thread for my homies because they're driving right now. They're not taking notes. So if you could go to Dental Town, there's 50 categories. One is dental insurance, and say Howard wanted me to post these notes from our podcast, and then put a JPEG image of each one of those 5 books, links to where they can get it, and then also I provide a transcript to all these because 85% of our listeners are always saying, I'm driving, I can't pull over and take notes, I can't do that. So we always put a transcript. And then, Ryan, when you release this podcast, find the thread that Patti posted, Ryan, and drop it right in there. So then this podcast will be right underneath your own thread that you started. Perfect.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks for reaching out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I contacted you. You didn't contact me. Thanks so much for coming on my show.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Howard.